Hello, this is video 10A on probability. And if you don't have this handout, you can go ahead and download it on my PowerSchool website where you would find this video and press pause to get your materials ready. And when you're ready to continue, press play. Please pause now. Okay, so let's go ahead and start on probability. And you'll see in the first box here, it asks the question, what is probability? Probability is the chance of an event happening. And it can be expressed as a number between 0 and 1. So a probability can't have a probability less than 0, can't be in the negatives, and it can't be over 1. So now we're going to take a look at this number line here, and this is the probability number line. And it says above it, label the terms on the number line impossible, unlikely, equally likely, likely, and then certain. So I would like you to pause your video so you can write in the words like I have. And here I used red. Here underneath the 0, you're going to write impossible. And then anything that has a probability between 0 and 1/2, we say it's unlikely. And if the probability is 1/2, we say equally likely. If the probability is greater than 1/2 but less than 1, we say the probability is likely, or the likelihood, we call it, is likely. And if the probability has a probability of 1, then we say it's certain. And so pause the video so that you can write everything you see on your screen, and when you're ready to continue, press play. Please pause now. Now let's take a look at the questions below. It says in black bold, which letter would represent the probability? Then describe the likelihood of the event. So underneath the probability number line, we have the letter A over here. It's underneath the 0. The B is at 1/2. The C is a little bit before the 1, and then the D is right underneath the 1. So we're going to give each of these events a letter, depending on where we think the probability of that event happening would be. So for number 1, it says snowing when it's 85 degrees outside. What is the probability of that happening? So if we had to choose between A, B, C, or D, we would say that the probability of that happening would be A. It would be impossible. It's not possible because it's so hot outside that the condensation in the air would not be cold enough to become snow. So we're going to say A, impossible. Now let's look at problem 2. Problem 2 says burning your dinner when you cook it too long. Okay, well, that's probably going to be likely to happen. So here it's either going to be a 50-50 chance, or a C where it's more likely to happen, or a D it's absolutely going to happen. So I would guess that that would be at C where it's likely to happen. So burning your dinner when you cook it too long, it's going to be likely. So let's go ahead and write C, and the likelihood we say it's likely. Okay. For number 3, it says, if today is Monday, tomorrow will be Tuesday. What is the likelihood or the probability that that would occur? So here again, it's not impossible, because if today is Monday, tomorrow definitely will be Tuesday. It probably has a 100% chance of happening, which is right over here. So we're going to say that point will be point D, and that means if it's out 1, or 100%, we say that it's certain to happen. So go ahead and write that on number 3. And then number 4, flipping a coin and it landing on heads. Okay, so if you flip a coin, the chances of it landing on heads is 50%, because the other side, there's only 2 sides, heads and tails. So 50% that'll land on heads and 50% that'll land on tails. So that point would be right here, point B. And we would describe the likelihood by saying it is equally likely to occur. So please write that down for number 4. So for the next part, we're going to be looking for the actual probability of an event. So the finding of the event in this box here, it says right here a capital P and then in parentheses event. So that's how probability is written. So the P stands for the probability, and inside the parentheses you'll put in what probability you're looking for. So this is the probability of an event happening. And it is equal to a fraction, which is written like this: the number of favorable outcomes over the total number of outcomes. So go ahead and pause the video so you can copy this down, and when you're ready to continue, press play. Please pause now. So what we're going to do is we're going to write our probability by setting up our fraction like this, and we always want to write the probability in simplest form. So let's go ahead and take a look at problem number 1 here. And it says find the probability, and here's a spinner. And this says P, and then in parentheses land on H. So this stands for the probability that the spinner, this is a spinner, that the spinner lands on H. So let's go ahead and figure out what that probability is, the probability that it will land on H. So what we want to look is how many H's is possible for it to land on. So we have 1, 2. So we have 2, and then we want to find out how many total possible outcomes are there. So we count the number of slices. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So then the probability that it's going to land on H is 2 out of 7. So go ahead and write that fraction, and always leave your answer in simplest form when it can be simplified. So now let's take a look at problem number 1b, the second part, where it says the probability that the spinner is going to land on P or A. So now we're going to look at all the sections that have either letter, P or A. So we have 1, 2, 3. And so there are 3 outcomes that it could have P or A, and there's still a total of 7 slices. So now we're going to put our answer is going to be written as a fraction 3 over 7. Okay, now for problem 2. Problem 2 says, if you spin the spinner 70 times, how many times would you predict to land on H? Okay, so now what we're going to do a prediction, we always are going to use the proportion. First, our first ratio, so remember our proportion looks like this. Our first ratio is going to be the probability that it's going to land on H. And we said earlier it's going to be 2 out of 7. And now we want to know if we were to spin the spinner 70 times, how many times would we predict that it would land on H? So we're going to put 70 on the bottom. We're going to put X here. Okay? And then you're going to solve for X. Now you can either work across, okay, work across like this. I see a relationship between 7 and 70, and then 2. You can figure out what to do to 2 to figure out what X is, or you can do the cross products, okay? I'm going to choose to work across just because it'll be faster. Okay, so here we have 10 times 7 is 70. So then 10 times 2 is going to give me what X is. So then my answer is going to be X equals 20. So I'm going to label it 20 times. Okay, let's take a look at problem 3. And before we continue with problem 3, I'm going to give you the secret code word. Since problem 3 has to do with a number cube, I want you to write the word Yahtzee right above here. Okay? Yahtzee is spelled Y-A-H-T-Z-E-E. And Yahtzee is a game of dice. So the keyword again is Yahtzee. Now let's continue. So for number 3, it says you roll a standard number cube. Find the probability. So here we want to find the probability that you're going to roll a 2. Okay? And because it's a cube, we know there are 6 sides. And the 6 sides each have a number 1 through 6. And there's only one side that has a 2. So the probability that it's going to land on 2 is going to be 1, because there's only 1 2 out of 6. Okay? So it's a 1 out of 6 chance. Now for the next one. Let's say I asked you, what is the probability of not rolling a 5? okay? So if you're not going to roll a 5, that means you're going to roll every other number. So you're going to roll a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 6. Those are all possibilities. So these are what we call our favorable outcomes. And if we look at these, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possible outcomes, and there's 6 total outcomes. So a probability of not rolling a 5 would be 5 out of 6. And that's it. That's all for your notes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.